Okay. So we're starting our multidisciplinary panel titled Ask the Patient Partners About Patient Engagement and Research. I will pass it over to Jay, who's our moderator again today for the multidisciplinary.
Awesome. Thanks, Ivana. I'm realizing that everyone is so much more academically inclined than I was as a teenager. Everyone was like, yeah, my kid would love to participate in research. When I was a teenager, I was mostly thinking about how to get laid. And counter, like the counter side of that was like I wasn't confident, right? I was like, my face looks kind of weird, right? How do I overcome that? And so, cool that everyone's like, yeah, I would want to get involved in research. I just wanted a skateboard, right? Like, very, very different. I'm really excited about Ella. Ella is going to be our first presenter on this panel. Just last month, she presented on the March Cup of Tea in terms of second cancer screening. And now that I found that out, I was like, I need to go watch the recording. So really excited about that. She had bilateral retinoblastoma, and I'm going to pull out the rest of your bio so that I'm not. Yeah, amazing. Perfect. I have 2 copies, paper and digital. So we're still making that debate years later, whether it's research or introductions. Wow. So Ella helped write the Canadian National Retinoblastoma Strategy. She was one of the early CRAB members. She works for Environment and Climate Change Canada. I didn't know that, so very cool. And she's an advocate for Depict Health, which she'll be sharing a little bit about. So please help me welcome Ella. Give her a round of applause. And I'll get out of here later.
I don't know if you want me to do it for you. Well, let's see how that goes. Can it just backwards too? Yeah. Yeah, okay. All right. Great. I think I'll do it. I have control. Okay, amazing. That's great. I need sheet notes. Well, thank you very much. Do I have to use that?
So that they can hear you, yeah.
Do I? Like, can you hear me if I just talk without it?
Vancouver was just saying they're having a difficult time hearing. So
oh boy, okay. That's interesting. Yeah, I think so.
You just clip on the screen would be fine.
Does that work? Can you hear that? Yeah, okay. And then that just goes. Yeah, okay, great. That's cool. Perfect. Yeah, thank you very much for that introduction, Jay. And it's really my pleasure to have been voluntold to give this talk. I'm a really strong advocate for Depict. I just want to say at the outset that while my name is first on this list, I really have done none of the work that I'm talking about and advocating for. Based on some experiences over the last few years, when I heard about this tool, I immediately knew that I needed it to come into fruition. So I very recently joined the International Retinoblastoma Consortium to hopefully help to get it launched. So I'm going to share with you a little bit of my passion. So I think I've already been introduced, but for those of you who might not be able to see on the slide, I have a picture highlighting the right side of my face, and in particular my prosthesis, as kind of a nod to why I'm here. And yeah, so I'm a biologist with Environment and Climate Change Canada. I'm a policy advisor there. As Jay said, I had bilateral retinoblastoma. And but what you might not know is that what actually got me started in my trajectory to where I am in my current position and work is that I worked in research under Dr. Galley and with Tim Corson, who was my first mentor and supervisor in research, who's here. And this happens to be, I think, the first conference or conferencing type thing that we've been at together since I was working with him. So that's pretty cool. And really neat to be sharing in the same space again 20 plus years later. So yeah, and I helped with the Canadian National Retinoblastoma Strategy Guidelines, something that I also got involved in because I fought the BC government to get a genetic test, and all the aspects of those guidelines really spoke to me. So I worked with a group of people for about 4 years to get those out, and I was one of the early CRAD board members. So we thought that since I'm talking about DPICT, I might sort of share my story, my retinoblastoma story through DPICT. So Caitlin threw together this rough timeline, and I say it's rough because I have patchy medical records and don't have many of the records with me and don't have access to the records that would allow me to have all of this entered accurately. So hopefully, eventually, that will happen. But anyways, my right eye was enucleated at about 1 month of age, which you can see in the with the yellow triangle here. You can see a list of all of my EUAs. I had tumors until I was about 2.5 years old. I am now 42. And importantly, I've had regular follow-up with an ophthalmologist over the course of my life, but I've had no other follow-up care. So Jay spoke to being a member of the LEAP clinic, follow-up clinic. There's also a follow-up clinic here in Toronto. I have not had access to that, although that may be changing post my cup of tea presentation and some insights from Bruce. So hooray for community. And then what's also important and sort of part of my patchy medical record history is that I've moved around the country a lot for education, research, and training. So I've had care at a lot of different centers, and I have tried to obtain my medical records without much luck. So the main reason that I'm here is that early last year, I started to develop a number of bumps in and around my neck. And because of the experience that I'd had in retinoblastoma work as a patient in research, I sort of knew that maybe this was something that I should kind of pay attention to. I relatively recently moved to Ottawa for my current job. Is there feedback? Or is it okay?
Vancouver's hearing some feedback too.
Okay. Okay. So, oh, that's better. I think. Okay. Sorry. So yeah. So I, because of the experience that I've had, I thought, okay, this should probably be looked at. Recently, having moved to Ottawa, I don't have access to a regular family physician, despite my best efforts. And so, and also, I think kind of post or government, maybe the walk-in system, primary care system in Ontario is not great. And in particular since the pandemic. And so, very lengthy walk-in visits in order to, be able to speak to somebody. After speaking to my community here, and the community of physicians that are in my life, and sort of knowing that I should probably get some imaging done, I followed up with several visits, and it really took me 2 or 3 of these walk-in visits in order to be referred for imaging. Everything is fine, by the way. Mine are also benign. But that really led me to that I need my medical history with respect to retinoblastoma in a single, easily accessible place that I can show new healthcare professionals, and in particular GPs, that don't kind of have so much knowledge of retinoblastoma. In addition to that, I was part of this setting the top 10 research priorities, and there are several of those priorities that I really hold dear, and I see DPICT as a tool. DPICT is a tool that can help to address, I think, all of those priorities. So that's why I'm here. So just like, maybe because we're interested, but also along the theme of audience engagement, I guess, there's a QR code here, and I'm just curious for the audience, which of these 2 medical record types are easier for you to digest and understand? So on, I don't know, depending, I guess if you're looking at the screen, on the left-hand side is my kind of timeline as included in DPICT, as inputted in DPICT, and then on the right-hand side is kind of the traditional narrative medical records. So if you go to the QR code, there'll be a few questions there about what you find easier to digest, comprehend, understand. And then Caitlin will very graciously look at those outcomes for me and share them. This is the first time I've ever included a QR code. It's like really the theme here, though, so I feel very in. And I think while you're doing that, if you've already there, I'm going to go to the next slide because it has an even more beautiful depict picture that includes an ocular diagram. So you can see lots of the other kind of treatment types. You can see the enucleation there. You can see all the EUAs on the bottom in those vertical yellow lines. All right, do you see anything, Caitlin?
Yeah, we have 9 responses so far.
Cool.
You give it 1 more minute.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That sounds good. And I would say that like this is even a little bit harder to see in terms of like when you would typically be looking at the timeline, because this is on the screen and I haven't sort of made the legend very big, and whereas I did make the text large. So anyway, not that I'm trying to bias here. Okay, all right. All right, we can.
Shall we go?
Yeah.
So there's 22 responses.
Oh wow.
23 is climbing.
Okay.
Oh.
Thank you.
Okay, I was on the spot, but we would share my screen, but that's okay. So of the 25 now responses, the lion's share, meaning 24 of 26, say that they find depict health better for understanding the treatment course. Similarly, 22 of the 27 respondents find depict health might be preferable for research. With respect to retrieval of information, 2/3 say depict health would be easier for retrieval, but 1/3 say the narrative or text-based medical record might be preferable. In terms of the timeline being easy to understand, 50% of the respondents say that it was 1, which is strongly agree, it's easy to understand. And then about 25% of the respondents say it is 2, which is slightly less, but still very easy to understand. And then the remaining respondents rated it 3, 4, or 5, so somewhere between neutral to. Yeah. And the last question was, do you think the text-based medical record was easy to understand? So it kind of has a converse response. So only 3% of the respondents found the text-based medical record easy to understand. And 40% of the respondents found the text-based medical record somewhat difficult to understand. So
yeah, really helpful, I think, and I think in line generally with our perspective. But anyway, just as a bit of a explore the tool. Okay, so the next piece is that I wanted to talk about how I think DPICT can address the top 10 research priorities. I'm not going to talk about all of them. I've just kind of selected a few and a few that kind of have a common theme. But so there are 10 research priorities. They fall into a bunch of categories. A couple of those research priorities fall into single categories. So anyway, the research priorities cover diagnosis, second cancers, psychosocial, follow-up, treatment, and then there's some miscellaneous things and global health. The first one that I wanted to speak to is actually challenging for me to speak to, and it's kind of strange that it's challenging because I am an advocate. I have been an advocate for a long time. But it's the psychosocial piece. My prosthesis does make me a little uncomfortable. Which I'm happy to talk about with anybody who wants to have a one-on-one conversation. But I think, probably because it makes me uncomfortable, it's actually really important to talk about. So, so this psychosocial priority is how to provide culturally competent, social, emotionally, and psychological support to patients and families. And so Depict Health kind of anchors the circle of care. So here you can see that there's a patient view and then a view that is editable by the whole circle of care. So clinical social worker, social worker, radiologist, genetic counselor, ocularist, there's a whole slew of folks listed there, and they would have editable access. But then for the patient, we would have view-only access, but it means that we would have the view of that entirety, that cycle of care, and also kind of shows us a path. And for me, as somebody who had retinoblastoma as a patient, that actually provides me a lot of psychological relief. And then in addition to that, with my current experience, and knowing, oh yeah, I should also say that I have one of the common mutations. I mean, I have bilateral, so that's, probably generally understood that I have a mutation, but given my mutational status at this stage of my life, I need to be really aware of my body. I need to be aware of changes, and having that that complete the entirety of care there to see and to provide to a physician and know that that's there and that's in my control as an advocacy tool, that also provides a fair amount of relief. And then in addition to that, I would say that the e-cancer care, which kind of forms a bunch of the foundation of this tool, that has been shown to, for families in the early stages of diagnosis, provide those families with the opportunity to contribute to care and choices. So there's a host of reasons. The second piece that I want to speak to is our ability to utilize Depict Health and the information that's stored there for research. So it anchors care. All of the healthcare professionals would input the care that the patient receives at whatever visit in there, and then that would be accessible with patient consent. And so that ability to use Depict for research contributes to, can contribute to understanding what second cancer screening is optimal for heritable retinoblastoma patients, what's optimal follow-up for heritable RB, and I know that we are all very concerned about that and understanding that, and also prospective RB treatment studies with long-term follow-up. And just to kind of visualize, I think I'm probably over time now, so I'm gonna go a little bit quickly over this, but for anybody who can't see, on this slide, I have a diagram with 3 boxes. In those boxes, the topmost box, the box that's closest to the top of the slide is patients that participate. The second box is the primary site of the circle of care. So that could be, for example, Sick Kids in Toronto. And then in the third box is a secondary site for the circle of care. So that could be, I don't know, Children's Hospital in Vancouver or Calgary or whatever. In between those boxes is an arrow with communication consent with patients, and then leading to the right is an arrow that then leads to ethics board approved research, and then an arrow that cycles back to the research to the patients. So with optional consent by patients for research use of Depict data, for research use of Depict data, the clinical team receives the data from Depict when they request it, and then the patient's data can also be shared for other external research when there's ethics board approval, and then that research can cycle back to the patients to tell us what we want to know and understand about second cancer screening, optimal follow-up, and the prospective studies. And so, you know, like we really have identified ways that Depict can help to address all 10 of these, the top 10 priorities. This is just like one small, well, not small, it's actually a big opportunity, an example. As I said, I recently joined this community to hopefully help to launch this tool, this communication tool. It's a small team, very mighty, with everybody else doing a lot more work than I am. But just to say that really, it's been an empowering experience to join the team. I feel incredibly privileged to have the opportunity to be a part of it, and we need more help. So if you are interested, again, with the QR code theme, here's a link to contact us to let us know if you're interested or if you have questions. I've also provided an email address there. We've got a table outside in the gallery that has like actual paper printout if you wanted to take that. Brenda, did you get access to
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
so
I have a demo to pick from my computer.
So she can do a demo if you're interested, and maybe over lunch or whatever, we can be there to chat about it. Yeah, I just want to say thank you and come and join us. It would be wonderful to have a larger circle of people who are involved. And I'll just say on the piece that Ivana wanted to talk to us about, you know, our experience in research. You know, I've been involved in retinoblastoma research for over 20 years now, and it's changed the course of my life and has been, yeah, a privilege, and it's really fun. You know, it's kind of a second family that I have here. So anyway, that's my spiel. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stella. Wow. Sorry, I just realized I'm like yelling at you and you're right in front of me. I'll stand farther away. That was great. Thank you. Like, well, excited to see, you know, how Depict Health works, and Brenda will walk us through a bit of a demo outside later. Next up, third generation retinoblastoma survivor, recent University of Toronto graduate. She spent last summer in the Damaris lab undergoing clinical research coordination. And I'm really excited because here to talk to us about PROMs, patient-reported outcome measures, from the point of view of retinoblastoma. Please put your hands together for Michelle Grenier.
I just wanted to see if this clip-on mic is working.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you. As Jay was saying, I am a third-generation bilateral RV survivor. My grandfather on my mom's side had the heritable mutation, the unilateral RV. My mom had bilateral RV, but and had both eyes enucleated. And I'll get into my personal experience in a little bit. I also have a brother who is affected. And so with that comes, you know, a wealth of lived experience, mostly limited to my family up until I had moved to Toronto during university. And I moved to Toronto to study biology at U of T. So that gives me experience both as a researcher and as a patient partner. I kind of came to this symposium in 2020 to get involved and apply my research experience as I was starting to get involved in unrelated research at U of T. And since then, that has evolved into involvement in the RV community in a variety of ways. I was involved with the Canadian Retinoblastoma Society, but on the research end of things, since 2020, I've been on the social media team. I was a part of Helen Harris's lab as a summer student, working on a precursor project to the Rare Pediatric Eye Cancer Biobank. And I've been advising on FaceQ, which is what I'm here to talk about today. And currently, after finishing my studies, I'm now working at Sick Kids again as a sprint coordinator, sprint being an institutional pathway we have to make sure that research teams have the tools that they need to get their research started. So I'm involved with a variety of projects across the institution now at this point, helping make sure that they have the tools they need to get started with the research at Sick Kids. So, Farheen had approached me about FaceQ, I believe in 2022. And FaceQ, some of you may have been involved with it yesterday during one of the sessions, is a patient-reported outcome measure for retinoblastoma patients when it comes to, it's a questionnaire regarding your facial appearance, how you're doing socially, and how your eye functions. So depending on the patient, it can be answered by the parent or it can be answered by the patient themselves. And there's multiple categories of questions. If you would rate it on a scale of 1 to 4 of how often, for instance, there's an image of the cartoon person looking at themselves in the mirror. When you look at yourself in the mirror, how satisfied are you with the ways that your eyes align when you look at yourself? There are examples of questions like that. Or are you able to have fun with your friends at school if you're of school age? And all of these are things that would pertain to your eye condition. And so my role in this was I did a few meetings over the course of the past 2 years, just making sure that the content of the questionnaire is comprehensive, and that's from a few different angles. We wanted to make sure that the questions encompassed the variety of experiences of different types of retinoblastoma patients, and also that the questions, because of the numerical nature of it, would be something that is easy to understand by the patients. One of the things that we had looked into with this project was making sure that the reading level, where the questions were understandable by a third grade reading level. And this was important so that some of the middle grade and younger patients would be able to answer the questions for themselves and be able to speak about their own experience. So I put Farheen's email in here before I get into my kind of motivations and takeaways for it. Farheen is, this project is a part of her PhD program. And so feel free to reach out to Farheen if you want to get involved or if you have any questions about PACE-Q. So kind of going into my motivations for this, as I was saying, my RV experience, both as a researcher and a patient partner, since I've been involved with CRAB, I think a lot of my experience partnering in these research projects has drawn on my experience as a scientist. I came into it like in a university program, and I've had that kind of baseline knowledge of like research and inquiry to draw upon. PACE-Q was interesting in the respect that it drew almost entirely on my lived experience, as opposed to my experience as a researcher. And you know, being able to, like as a former summer student myself, being able to contribute to an additional project for a PhD program was something I found very rewarding. But when it came to applying my lived experience, there was like occasions in which a major takeaway was, even though I have a wealth of experience of having my parent with 2 prosthetics, multiple family members who have been involved, there's still extents to which my own lived experience can be applicable. One major thing that had come up was I was asked to participate as a patient partner on the section of the form that pertained to your prosthetic. And I had bilateral RV, I have profound vision loss in one eye, and so I functionally have like very monocular vision. However, I don't have a prosthetic. And I know that eye loss and dealing with like living with your prosthetic is such a big part of the community that I had ended up expressing my opinion that I think it would be important to have representation from that experience when it comes to addressing these questions, that like my experience is not necessarily the lived experience that is most applicable to this. When it came to, I'm also not a parent, and when it came to the parent angle, luckily we had Ivana coming to the meetings, you know, providing the parent perspective as well. But it did, yeah, come to mind like, you know, how, especially when it comes to the psychosocial aspect of things, there are some ways in which we have overlap. So for instance, like I had a noticeable facial asymmetry that was noticeable by my peers. However, that was not due to a prosthetic. So having representation from a diverse like range of people in this project was something that I found very important to consider. The other kind of main takeaway from this had to do with working in the constraints of the questionnaire itself. So as I was saying, there's multiple categories of answering things about how you're doing socially, your opinion on your appearance, etc. And part of the reason why we're looking to rate these things on a numerical scale is to be able to compare trends in how people answer the questions, if there's similarities in people answering between multiple questions, if certain questions are rated very highly or very low. Those are things that with kind of a validated like numerical scale makes understanding the trends easier. However, you do acknowledge that there's pros and cons to both of these things. And when it comes to like the numerical question, what you're losing is this open-ended experience. And so one of the main things that we were trying to draw from in this experience was making sure that within the limited constraints of having these simple questions that are graded numerically rather than an open-ended like interview, making sure that this could capture the range of RV patients' experiences, particularly as it pertains to the psychosocial and appearance-related outcomes. So I found it very rewarding to work on this, and I believe, as some of the other survivors have been saying, getting more deep into the psychosocial experience and some of my lived experience rather than professional experience has been a new experience for me. Yeah, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Please feel free to reach out to Farhian as well if you have any questions when it comes to FaceQ. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about it, and I've been very happy to have this opportunity to contribute to this project.
Awesome. Let's give Michelle a round of applause. Thanks, Michelle. We'll go through questions as soon as all the panelists have gone up. So we'll keep those questions parked. We'll have them in a sec. Why don't we all quickly stand up? Again, we've been through 2 out of the 4 panelists. Go ahead and stretch, and then 30 seconds to stretch, and then sit down. While Lynn, are you online? If you can come off mute so we can see you, hear you. And then I'll introduce you right now, actually. Lynn, are you there?
Hey everyone, can you hear me?
We can hear you and see you. Hello.
Hi, good morning
Awesome.
everyone.
Lynn, I'm going to quickly introduce you and then we'll pass it back over to you. Lynn Terabay joins us today, not in Canada. She's coming in hot from Lebanon. She's a retinoblastoma survivor who's active with retinoblastoma groups around the world, including CRAB. She has a degree in writing and graphic design, so she brings all of that to life, whether it's through her paint store online or when it comes to patient involvement. How do we create interactive, engaging materials, graphs, that kind of thing that actually work for us when we see them in clinic? So Lynn, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning everyone. I'm Lynn Terabay, 24 years old from Lebanon. I'm retinoblastoma survivor, unilateral, president of Retinoblastoma Community Lebanon, and a member in the Biobank. It's my honor to show up and have a talk with you all. Thank you, CRAB and Ivana Ristovsky, for having me today. I will share my journey and I will present Lebanon and all the kids with RB because they deserve the best life conditions. Presentation topics: my journey with RB, my experience with the CRAB, Biobank, and finally the conclusion. Next slide, please. I was the first patient in Lebanon when I was diagnosed by retinoblastoma at the age of 2. I had inoculation, chemotherapy, and radiation, and growth hormone. I encountered bullying along my journey, which was incredibly challenging. Additionally, the absence of friends with retinoblastoma like me in Lebanon compounded the difficulty. The bullying, no one to share my hard time with. The bullying was on my appearance. As a girl who have a prosthetic eye was difficult. To do the daily tasks was not easy on me, especially with my vision of one eyesight. And as you can see on my face right now, this is my appearance after 3 plastic surgery. Next slide, please. I embarked on a search for communities abroad, driven by the desire to find motivation, connect with fellow individuals living with RB, deepen my understanding of my condition, and gain valuable experience from other survivors. CRAB was one of the communities I found along this journey, and I'm so proud of this step in my life. In the name of hope and faith, I had already started the Retinoblastoma Community Lebanon, marking the beginning of my journey. And as a president of the Retinoblastoma Community in Lebanon, aimed to help alleviate the challenges faced by children with the condition. We offered free prosthetic eye to our children, cure like vision rehabilitation, and sharing experience with each others. And of course, we can't forget this tiny little bunny with a removable eye. It's fully handmade and with a prosthetic eye, so they can accept themselves, they can take care of their prosthetic eye. Next slide, please. I was really happy in my CRAB experience. I was introduced to them through Instagram, where they were inviting people to their symposium in January 2023. From there, I continued my engagement with them, eventually participating in their cup of tea event. I began accumulating knowledge through shared experiences of patients and doctors, as well as staying updated on their latest research. So thank you, a big thanks to the CRAB. Through CRAB, we were introduced to the biobank, this big step in my life. Next slide, please. There is a slide, yeah, there's a missing slide in here. Yeah, okay, thank you. What is the RPIC Biobank? The Rare Pediatric Eye Cancer RPIC Biobank is a facility that collects high-quality data on rare childhood eye cancers, including biological samples, health information, and medical images. By centralizing and storing this data for future research, the RPIC Biobank acts as a valuable resource for scientists worldwide to better investigate RPICs. Overall, the RPIC Biobank aims to facilitate global RPIC research and learning aimed at reducing negative RPIC outcomes and promoting child health. Next slide, please. From there, I want to introduce you at the PAC. The RPAC Biobank prioritizes patient-oriented research by promoting collaboration among patients, clinicians, and researchers from diverse fields and experiences. A specific way patients engage in the RPAC Biobank is through the Patient Advocate Committee, PAC. PAC members help govern REPAC Biobank operations, consult on the project's expand outreach efforts, and contribute their lived experience to the RPIC Biobank, ultimately striving to advance high-quality research on RPICs. Next slide, please. There is another one with the image, the slide with the image, please. Another one, yeah, here, as you can see here, there's a photo representing biological samples where the blood, tissue, fluids, etc. are stored at Sick Kids Hospital in liquid nitrogen freezers. Images and personal health data are kept on a secure server. Next slide, please. Yeah, here I want to really say thank you, and I'm so proud that I am a member at the Biobank. I want to thank Dr. Helen DeMaras, Caitlin, and Francis, and all the perfect team. Wonderful experience, and one of the best moments when Dr. DeMaras, for me, clarified the difference between the PHPV mimic retinoblastoma and the normal retinoblastoma. So thank you for the best team that I'm working with. So here, so what you are waiting for, if you are an RB patient, a patient partner, you can join the PAC. Your engagement matter. And the question here, how? How others can join the PAC? Sure, you can join the PAC by reaching out to the email doves.biobank@sickkids.ca. Next slide, please. As a PAC member and a graphic designer, I provided the PAC with some design advice. Lately, the trifold digital brochure, and I was so proud of myself. Last but not least, from there, we have for you the information guide. The Patient Advocate Committee PAC created the PAC information guide to promote and enhance communication of patient partnership opportunities in the RPIC Biobank. The PAC information guide addresses frequently asked RPIC Biobank questions, discuss the importance of patient partnership in research, and provides a few examples of how patient partners of the PAC engage in the RPIC Biobank and research. Next slide, please. The conclusion, last but not least, working with other RB survivors has become easier due to our shared experiences, which have not only eased my journey, but theirs as well. Now we have more information about RB and how to perform daily tasks in a simple manner. We feel that our voices are heard as all our questions are answered and the fears of RB members are addressed and consoled. Through their ongoing research, they make our future less worrying. We want to express our gratitude to CRAB and Biobank for their continuous support. This marks the second year of our participation, and we are thankful for the opportunity to be part of this community. Thank you all.
Awesome. Wow. Thank you so much, Lynn. Thank you so much for sharing about the biobank. And also, I feel like the biggest question we all have is, how do we get one of those rabbits? Right? I need one for my daughter right away. So let me know if you can hook it up. I will buy one right now. Our next speaker is almost doesn't need an introduction. She's been up here all weekend. She is a parent in research at the Damaris Lab. You've seen her for years at all the cup of teas, the CRAB meetings, CRBS meetings, you name it. And here to share about the retinoblastoma journey map, along with, is your son's coming up too? Awesome. Come on up. Yeah, do you want to grab the mic from me? No? You sure? You can have it. Yeah? All right, it's all you. Give him a round of applause.
You want the microphone? You want me to hold this for you? We'll just get ready once. Okay, yes, so I'm not going to go over my background. What I did want to say about this project specifically was I was really interested in it because it was a way to track the journey, and I will explain sort of how we developed the project and how the question was developed. But just overall, I'm not the most detailed person, so I don't keep great records myself. I might save some papers, they'll go in a pile, and then there's different papers filed in different places. So I'm not the most organized, and I thought this might be a way that would help me sort of remember all the different things and all the different steps, and I'll explain in detail how we got there. But so to start us off, so my son's really eager to get back to the exciting child life activity. He would like to share how he uses his map. So I'm going to hold it for him, and he's going to tell you how does he use it and what does he like about it. So if you could stand here.
I use the journey map to see my journey through having retinoblastoma, and it can show you all the achievements I've had, and it shows stuff I've gone to and stuff I've done while I had RB and stuff that I have done after I had it.
What do you want to point to something specific?
There are things on the map that are celebrate year of clinic visits. I can say the word retinoblastoma, celebrate eye drops, celebrate going to the Washington event, celebrate my RB story. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that information. Thank you.
Vancouver is asking if you can hold the map to the camera. They'd love to see it if you don't mind.
I think the cameras.
Oh, the cameras are here.
There's one here too, which is a bit closer.
I'm going to bring it up and you can keep going.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yes. So, thank you for sharing your story.
Oh, I don't know what happened there.
There you go.
That's probably recognizing that there's people there.
Nice. So he's still using the map, And the latest celebration was that he had been able to take out his own prosthetic, and within the last week or two, now he can put it back in. And that was a huge celebration that we're adding another sticker for. So that's how we use it. Well, let me tell you about this project. I wanted to go over how patient engagement was involved throughout the process. And then I wanted to talk about the project itself. So to walk you through identifying the problem, Ella shared a little bit about the top 10 priorities. So identifying that there was a need for a pathway of care, such as I explained that I needed, being a bit more organized and tracking everything, was identified through the top 10 retinoblastoma research priorities, where parents, patients, survivors, researchers, and health professionals were involved to identify the priorities and determine the top 10. Study research question and design study was the next phase in the research process, where there was the idea of putting together this Get Well map, which is the actual board itself is from the Get Well Map Foundation, who contributed the maps for the project, and was brought to us by Morgan Livingstone, our child life specialist, who had that connection. And then I helped co-lead this project and develop how we were going to create this RV journey map using the Get Well maps, and how are we going to involve patients and test out its use. The next step is seeking funding. So having patient involvement in this step of the research process, I was co-applicant on a grant. And in one particular instance, I remember we had a meeting with one of our funders, and we were trying to explain the use of the map, and we had explained that it would be a pathway of care. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, like they were asking, well, what else could this be used for? And that's when I was thinking, like, okay, my son is not at that beginning stage. He's a little bit older, but I really want something that's like an easy view in a kid-friendly format that we could talk about RV and keep this record for him. And I think, not to toot my own horn, I think that was an important factor for them to hear, to see how a patient partner or other families could use the map, and it helped with discussing the funding opportunity at that point. Developing materials, next part of our research process. There was many ways that our patient partners, again, patient in the broad term, not just patients, but also parents, were involved. In 2020, some of you may have been here at the Symposium, where we had a workshop where we designed stickers for the map and discussed how it will have an impact, which then helped us to identify questionnaires to evaluate the study. We also, at that point, had one of our child life participants was very eager to participate, and she came in, I think she might have been around 10 at the time, so it was maybe an older child, younger youth, and she helped us sort of offer some feedback, and there's a picture of her in my slides on the left-hand side. She's helping design some of the stickers, and the children helped us with some of the wording where, as parents, maybe our terminology wasn't as cool, and Morgan had gone back to the children's room to ask them, what do you guys think of this wording? And they'd come back with, I don't know about that. Specifically for things like clinic club and some of the other stickers that were used, and what was important to them and how they identified with these accomplishments. The families who were involved in that sticker design also helped us design the materials to inform the families. So they would look at the package that was created and comment on it, comment how this information should be shared to families, and helped us finalize the materials and test out the map with their own child and family. To collect, analyze, and interpret data, I helped implement the surveys and introduce the map to families. So as a parent, I could show them my map the same way that my son showed it to you guys. I showed it to them when introducing of how it could be used and offering them the opportunity to just test it out and to help us provide the feedback to see how this tool answers the priority number 9 and our research question. I also implemented the surveys and then interviewed the family. So this was something very new to me that I was really had my researcher hat on for this and learned how to conduct interviews, but also felt often that I wanted to just keep chatting with the families, and I had to keep remembering that I had some things I had to check off my list and complete, and not continue with, oh yeah, this is what I think. So it was an interesting experience that I really enjoyed, and enjoyed meeting the other families as well. Analyzing the data was another new aspect that was, from my experience, very research focused. My background is in business, so I don't have any research other than maybe some statistics, which wasn't as helpful as I thought it might be later in life. But I did learn how to analyze data and how to find themes out of interviews, and compare the data and look at it, which then we used and had a virtual workshop to show themes from interviews with the quotes to verify the credibility of our conclusions. We had an additional workshop in 2021 to discuss the overall feelings about the map with a broader group at a 2021 Symposium, and overcoming barriers to participation, as well as how to involve stakeholders in interpreting results. So that helped us plan the virtual workshop. And then sharing results. We had in 2023, so last year's Symposium, we co-led a workshop to create plain language summary of the article that was written about the project. We had patient partners, along with myself, co-author of this paper. The paper was then, or the information about the study was also presented at a conference and has been shared different parts throughout its process at symposia and events with our crowd community. So the project itself, the project had addressed the top priority number 9, which is how to provide a detailed pathway of care or plan outlining treatment and follow-up to retinoblastoma patients and families. Just showing quickly what the families did. At the very beginning, when they were introduced to the project, they had a questionnaire to fill out. They used the map for 6 months, and then they had the same questionnaires to do again, plus a couple additional ones, and the survey. There's an image of one of the other themes of the map. That's the same one we have, but there was different themes that the families were able to choose from to align with their child's interests. The results were that 8 families participated in testing the map. Questionnaires showed that it was usable, feasible, acceptable, but it didn't have an impact on anxiety, depression, and communication with physicians, which was what the surveys were monitoring for. Families used the map to track their RB journey and talk about their journey with their children. And the key findings include that the main use of the map was as a record keeper for communication with the child and with the family and friends. And this was also during the COVID time, so they didn't take the map to clinic visits, not just because of COVID, but also the portability. The map is quite large, not foldable and flexible, and might be one of the reasons that would not be a suitable way to answer that question and keep track with your clinical team. And the RBG map, was not used to predict the next step, so it was mostly used to keep a record. So while we're doing our Q&A, I wanted to ask you guys, so we had a short overview of what the project was. If you could let me know your thoughts about where you see the RB Journey Map being implemented and how it could be used, and perhaps who it could be led by, so that which part of the journey would be the best time to receive it and be involved with it. And if you, any thoughts, if you like it or if something that would work for you or maybe not work for you. So that concludes my presentation. We can continue that during the Q&A.
Awesome, thanks, Donna. Why don't we grab the panelists up in Toronto? So Ella, Michelle, come on up. And then Lynn, if you can come off mute and if you'd like to show yourself on camera, that would also be great. But why don't we kick off with the question that Ivana just had for all of us. How do we think that we could use the journey map as part of our journey? Any thoughts from Halifax? Why don't we start with Halifax and then we'll go from there. Can you hear us on the East
Yeah,
Coast?
we can hear you. I was just trying to unmute. At the moment, we don't have a question right now.
Okay, and any thoughts on how you might see the journey map being used as part of the journey?
Yeah, so Mauj.
Yeah, Ivana, thank you so much for that. That brought me back to the good old days. I remember working on this. And I think the biggest thing is, like, aside from it being used as a like story or kind of like a keeping record, I think a lot of people were also kind of going more towards the direction of having something virtual or having an app or some sort of digital form of this. But I know that I'm sure the families are still using the paper version as well. And it's very cool to see the patients themselves kind of use it to advocate for themselves too. But yeah.
So another comment from myself. It's interesting because we're actually doing a project down in hematopathology, which is the blood lab, in showing families and kids their own leukemia cells. So when they're diagnosed and what their bone marrow looks like before and afterwards. And one of the ideas from that is to morph that into an app where they can actually have that information, they can download that, and they can actually use that as part of their own sort of taking ownership of their own disease, understanding it, being able to project, and then potentially being able to use it as a self-management tool, and to actually help integrate that with clinics, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just wondering where, like, that idea can certainly be extended to something like a journey map or depict or anything like that, so that you can actually incorporate that. And I think one of the most important things is going to be that patients and survivors have access to their own information that is highly portable, that they can actually use to help to advocate for their own survivorship, their own healthcare, no matter where they are. And that information is sort of very, very highly portable these days, whereas in the past, it was all in one huge paper chart somewhere in health records, and you couldn't get at it unless you knew what you were looking for. You had no idea what you were looking for. Whereas I think there's certainly an opportunity to incorporate all these different things into an app that really sort of is given to and owned by the patient, so that they can actually use that to advocate for their own healthcare.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of moving towards an app-based model where we can use it and then also share it accordingly. Maybe Vancouver heads up. We'll come to you in a second, but so be ready to come off of mute. Anyone in Toronto? Yeah, Celine.
Comment on the map. So, just like a couple of days ago, I was actually cleaning up my son's closet, and I saw we have one of them as well, because I was part of the whole preparation of it with Ivana, the workshop. I while I found it to be for us, because our son was unilateral, non-heritable, I feel like we seldom referred to it. So it just kind of served as a keepsake for him. So I mean, now he's 7 years old, so I can imagine we would have a sit down and I would actually go through it with him and say, this is your journey, and really talk about it then. But just trying to think of other times that I think I would bring it out would be if we were moving and we were getting a new pediatrician or a new GP, and having him advocate for his healthcare and say, this is my journey and this is what I had. Other times I feel in our scenario being unilateral, non-heritable, I found that it, like I said, it just kind of served more of a keepsake, for him to one day show his his own, you know, his friends, his own children, hopefully one day. But I think it's more useful, I would say, in the bilateral community, just because of the ongoing, you know, EUAs and like, I mean, countless like visits like that, like kind of like lose track of how often you're going. With the app, while I think it's a great idea, I think because RB is more geared towards, you know, like younger children have it like under age 5. Like unless like, you know, you're all about like, you know, iPads and screens and whatever, like we don't care, like we don't have any like limitation with that. But I feel that that's more for the parents, you know what I mean? Like, okay, here I have the app with me, like I have it here, because like who's going to carry that around to the hospital, right? Unless they're inpatients. But I think it's like more visual, motivational aspect to have a tangible thing for the kids to put up in their room and to really refer to it for more social emotional rather than more clinical. You know what I mean? Like, oh, here, this is my journey, but I'm almost certain that they have a file of all that stuff, right? Like when they go to the hospital, they're going to have a record of, okay, you had your last EUA this at this time. And then I think it's more served for like, for a motivational, like I said, like social emotional aspect for a kid. But that's my take on it from a unilateral standpoint, like, you know, yeah, and they use it. So I just wanted to share that piece.
Awesome, thanks so much. Just for anyone else who has this question, because I've heard EUA a few times, I don't know what that means. What does that stand for? Can anyone just help me out quickly?
Examination under.
Oh, thank you. Again, non-medical person in the room. For those of you online, EUA, for my sake, was examination under anesthesia. So thank you. Shifting gears a bit, and then, oh yeah, Genevieve has a question. And then shifting gears a bit while I come to Jen, anyone who has questions about DEPICT or PROMS or the journey map or, you know, anything that's been talked about in the last hour or so, feel free to get ready with your question. We'll come over to Vancouver next.
Thank you. This is Genevieve. I just wanted to echo what Talene had said. I think that I was also a part of some of the workshops and I really appreciated the chance to include the kids in this as well. And I think as well that it's a bit of a legacy piece. It kind of speaks to the experience, and as an adult, I often credit my parents with the experiences from those early days, and they're the ones who experienced cancer. I don't have any memories of those things. So a journey map like that would really help me to now go back and say, oh, wow, these are the things that I actually went through. And again, as Celine mentioned, being in the unilateral community, prior to genetic testing, we still, even though we weren't bilateral, underwent all the same screening because there was no way to tell whether we were or weren't. So I was exposed to the same amount of EUAs, even though I was unilaterally diagnosed. So I think it still, for many of us, is applicable to know all the things that we went through. You know, my mom will tell stories of spinal taps and EUAs and all the bone marrow, but I have no context. And I think something like what you've created here definitely satisfies that psychosocial piece to be able to go back and say, and really validate what we went through, even though I don't have any concrete memories of those experiences.
Thanks, Genevieve. Vancouver.
Thanks so much.
Comments or questions?
Yes, can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. As much as I would love to say the health system has knowledge at its fingertips, I really feel for the families and extended family who have to answer the same questions over and over again. Because the reality is that when you arrive for an EUA, who's handling you wasn't the same person as last time, and they're obliged to ask all those questions over again anyway. And although it might be buried in their computer somewhere, that's not where they go to get the answer from. They ask you. So I love the design in terms of it being for the kids to look back and the family to explain to the children and discuss later and maybe explain to extended relations. The reality is that what's going on at the time so that you can show them what's happened before and not have to remember it all is really, really important. And I think it will be continuing to be an ongoing feature. So whatever goes into this, I still have the original journey map thing that we made at that workshop, and would love to see something that we can give families online or wherever it is to help in all of those dimensions. But don't forget, the healthcare system in the active phase still asks parents frustrating questions. I have a question for all the panel members, and anybody or nobody could answer it. You've all shared personal stories, and particularly in the proms, the questions are personal ones with a requirement for stepping out of your science area and reflecting on your lived experience. In 2024, we talk about events or conversations being triggering and requiring support, but nobody has mentioned that. Can you talk to us about whether there's any aspect of that and whether having this community is support enough, or how else could we be doing a better job of that? Thank you.
Sure, thank you for the question. I think it wasn't necessarily like triggering in the like individual event itself, because I think some of the unpacking of like the lived experience that happened. Oh, camera's over here. Okay, hi. Yeah, I think some of the unpacking of all that experience happened over time. I believe I mentioned this maybe at some other events, but like my parents weren't really comfortable saying retinoblastoma by name for most of my childhood. If I were to go to the doctor with my mom, who had prosthetic eyes, she would refer to it as my eye condition. So, you know, getting to adulthood, and like my brother is much older than me, once we were able to kind of speak candidly about it, I think some of that like processing happened over time throughout my teens and my early 20s. So the event itself may not have been like, you know, triggering in that sense. Speaking honestly, I think yesterday, hearing like Jay's keynote was like more like evocative than like having to recount my own experience, because I guess this is tying into some of the other panel presentations. I've been in the process of switching my care from the US to Canada. And that has been a like surprisingly difficult experience to have to reckon with, especially when it comes to like bilateral RV-centered care and making sure that that is in place in case things were to happen. So I'm not sure how the other panelists think, but I think, you know, there's always emotion that will come up with that. But it wasn't the most intense, I would say.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think I mentioned that the psychosocial piece is something that I don't, that I don't love to talk about. I mean, having said that, though, well, put it this way, I haven't like unpacked it with a therapist. And I would say that the trauma of the disease mostly lives with my parents rather than me. I think, I don't know. I mean, okay, so my answer at this point is it's a bit of a challenge being present in this community and being able to speak to community members about it, and having allies who very clearly have our best intentions and who are doing community-based work in the right way, I think, to me, provides the support that I need, I would say. That would be my kind of response. I think, I mean, yeah, there we go. I don't know that I can say any more than that. It's like, you know, it's not, I mean, the difficult, I don't know, maybe we need like a group session to talk about the difficult stages into adulthood based on these like challenging psychosocial pieces so that we can all share, you know, maybe that would be good. But there are, yeah, there are certainly challenges based on societal norms, and like there's a discomfort that exists to an extent when to like admit or talk about those things. In particular for me, I feel it's because I have really a full and rich life, and really, you know, even though I have a disability, I in most ways live as though I do not, you know, and in terms of what I've had the opportunity to build and develop. And so you know, I guess, you know, maybe there's like maybe some guilt about feeling like a little bit odd, you know, in terms of these kind of psychosocial pieces, but you know, there is that discomfort. I'm not really sure how much more can be done, except maybe at some point, maybe we'll have a meetup or something like that with people who are at similar life stages, who are dealing with similar challenges, to kind of share and talk about kind of, you know, I don't know, how we appreciate that. I wonder, Jay, if you would speak to it too, you know, on this panel, just because I feel like, you know, maybe there's some cross references there.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is we should probably need a group therapy couch session, and we'll do that shortly. Yeah. Ivana, I'll maybe give the space to Ivana or Lynn. Anything to top up on that question, and then.
Yeah, sure. Actually, I have the same opinion as the panels, and here in Lebanon, it was hard to have retinoblastoma, and of course, for the first patient in Lebanon, because there's not that much info about it, and the appearance, as I talked in my presentation, it was so hard for me. But in my community, I had so much info for the parents, how to manage the trauma after their journey or during their journey, and the psychiatrists, social workers, and all the stuff are ready to help the parents at first, and then the children, because we have this main idea that if the parents are motivated and have the courage to challenge the cancer, so the children will be fine, and they can as well manage the cancer. Yeah. Hope I answered your question.
Yeah, that was great. That was great. Coming to Ivana. Yeah, we'll take one more question. Anyone? Toronto, Vancouver, Halifax? Yeah. Oh, there's one online. I'm gonna bring a mic over 1 sec.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this is Luis from Vancouver. I'm the father of Dana. She was diagnosed with bilateral retinoblastoma 3 years ago. So my question is regarding what Lynn mentioned about the biobank. Is there any effort or any logistic process currently to collect the eyes from other parts of the world and put them together in the biobank? I'm thinking in her first endoplate eye was left in our local hospital in Mexico. So I think, I'm not sure, but I think that probably just left in there, it's not useful. There's no studies running there. There is nothing running there. So probably her eye could be more useful if it goes to the biobank and help the researchers to study. So is something currently running about it, or how the hospitals are connected to share that information?
Thank you for asking this important question. Actually, as my info, we are currently working in sick kids at Dr. Helen Dimara's lab, and when the a patient come into the hospital, they have this conversation between the doctor and the patient, and then they ask the parents if they are okay to share their info and all the stuff. So I'm not sure if you are in Mexico and you can send the tumor to Canada to the ticket. So it's so important if you are interested, and that you're as I said before, the engagement matter for us. So you can email us at the email that I mentioned before. And I asked Francis or someone who can send the email in the chat so he can email us.
Thank you, Lynn. This is Helen. That's excellent. You're doing your great job as our PAC member. It was very informative. I'll add one extra thing. The patients are always in charge of what happens with their biospecimen. So right now, yes, if the eye is in Mexico, we can consider the Mexican hospital as the steward or the caretaker of that biospecimen. But ultimately, what happens with that, outside of what's required for the clinical care, anything beyond that is up to the patient. I say that as sort of the principles, but in actuality, there are some hurdles to moving specimens, especially across borders, but it's not impossible. So right now, the way our biobank works is the patient families consent to participating in the biobank. And we have a number of hospitals in our network, even outside of Sick Kids. And I know we've been talking with Dr. Payton and Dr. Bush in Vancouver for joining on and making our biobanks work together. But we could, in theory, have any family join the biobank and then put in some agreements in place between the family, Sick Kids, and perhaps the hospital where the child was first treated, in order to transfer some of that, whether that's clinical information or biospecimens. So as Lynn said, we'll share some information. Francis will put our biobank email and our website in the chat, and we'll send it to Dr. Payton as well, so she can share it with you. Thank you for that.
Awesome, thanks, Helen. Last question from online. We want to make sure that we're counting for everyone, and then we'll pass it back to Ivana.
Perfect, thank you. This is a question from online. It says, it's important to note that patient partners don't need any experience with research. Ivana and Lynn, what would you say to patients that are reluctant to take a part in research due to inexperience?
Lynn, if you'd like to go first.
Yeah, but can you please repeat the question? I didn't hear well. What we will say to the patient who are
nervous or reluctant to take a part in research because they don't have any experience.
Actually, we care about our patient, and we show them the love and the care about them, because this is so essential in their journey. We don't force anyone to share their info with the biobank, but if he has this opportunity and he has this fear, so we will share with them the results, so he can see the positive impact in his future and in his life.
Thank you, Lynn. I think that covers a lot that I thought too. I was very reluctant in the beginning as well. I thought, I have no research background, and what could I help a researcher with who has a very specific skill set, and I don't have any of that skill set. So I'm like, okay, sure, I can come to this meeting, but I really was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. But giving it a chance, I think, would be my advice, because when I was a part of the top 10, determining the top 10 research priorities, and was on the committee to help narrow down like the full list of questions that we received. And I think that was the first time I was in this sort of like research group. And what was helpful to me is that questions were directed to me that first people thought about, okay, what's an easy way to ask a question? And they didn't ask me a very technical, it was questions that were thought out that a layperson like myself would be able to contribute to. So I felt welcomed and thought that I could contribute and answer these questions and didn't feel like I was an outsider and there wasn't like a technical lingo that sort of stopped from that. But I think we've kind of progressed a little bit more since then also in that we try to improve that patient experience and provide more materials in a way that helps patients understand what we're working on, helping them provide their input in different ways and maybe using their personal skill set to contribute, like Lynn is with her graphic design. So it doesn't always have to be, you know, you're sharing your personal experience. You could use your other skills. Yeah, so give it a try. When we send the next email for an opportunity, you know, join the call. If you don't want to contribute and talk, that's fine. You could just hang out and listen. Or these in-person events, if you just come and hang out, maybe just grab a coffee and just sit in the back and observe. Maybe that's just the first step if you're feeling a little nervous. Or reach out to any of our patient partners. We have some blog posts about their experiences. And sometimes on social media they post, and you could reach out to us or them also that way. There's more than just me that participate.
Awesome. Let's give our panelists a round of applause. And before I forget, because of the comment about the group therapy session, anyone in Vancouver, like, I'm coming back. I'm coming back right away. So if you want to find me on Instagram or LinkedIn, like, let's hang out, let's grab coffee, because Toronto couch therapy sessions might be hard for me. So connect with me, Vancouver. With that, let's pass it back to Ivana, and then we'll go break.
Thank you very much. Okay, it is break time. Parents, if you could go to help your children have their lunch, please, and then grab yours. Is it okay, my team here, that maybe we don't come back, we go straight to the workshops? So is that okay? Yeah, so anyone in Toronto will have at the back of their tag a reminder of which workshop they're in, and everyone in Halifax is joining one workshop, and Vancouver you've got two, and if we just follow what we did yesterday, if you have any questions, the leads. Oh, there's in 30 minutes. Yes, in 30 minutes, yes. Please have lunch first, or a snack and a break. And then we will reconvene afterwards. Back here to share what we've done in our workshops. So enjoy your break. You'll be sent to your workshops and we will meet there. Thank you. Good job.